Welcome to Wichita Liberty TV with Bob Weeks.
Hello, I'm Bob Weeks for Wichita Liberty TV, your weekly source for news, analysis, and commentary about Wichita and Kansas government and public policy. We're broadcast on KGPT, channel 26.1, also its companion website, kgpt26.com. Some of you may know me from my blog, The Voice for Liberty, on the internet at wichitaliberty.org. There, the motto is individual liberty, limited government, and free markets in Wichita and Kansas. I cover things that may not be covered by other news media in Wichita and Kansas, or if we do cover the same news, I'll do it from the perspective of economic freedom, limited government, and individual liberty, because these are the things that are important, and these are the things that we find so often under attack by our governments, be it at the federal, state, or local level. So, please visit wichitaliberty.org. You can subscribe to the email newsletter I send 2 or 3 times a week. And if you'd like to contact me, you'll find my email address and telephone there, or just remember bob.weeks@gmail.com. Well, one of the largest issues that Wichita may decide this year is whether to increase the city's sales tax in order to pay for a variety of projects. And recently, the Kansas Policy Institute released the results of a survey of Wichita voters concerning Wichita's economy and government. In its news release, KPI concluded that Wichita voters are opposed to business incentives, they want to preserve privatization over tax increases, and they have concerns about how City Hall has recently spent money. Now, this was a scientific survey of 502 registered Wichita voters conducted by Survey USA, a company that's widely used and respected across the country. The full results with crosstabs, questions, and methodology, it's available at kansaspolicy.org or also at my site, wichitaliberty.org. Here are some of the survey results illustrated in charts that I made. I showed these first few charts 2 weeks ago on this show, so we'll just review them for now. But the first question the survey asked was, in the past few years, have Wichita city officials used taxpayer money efficiently or inefficiently? And overall, 58% of Wichita voters believed that city spending was inefficient compared to 28% believing spending was efficient. And the second question the survey asked was, in general, do you agree or disagree with the idea of local governments using taxpayer money to provide subsidies to certain businesses for economic development? And overall, 56% disagreed with using taxpayer money to provide subsidies to certain businesses for economic development. 34% agreed. And the third question was, would you personally be willing to pay a higher sales tax in the city of Wichita to fund incentives to businesses expanding in Wichita or moving here from other states? And the overall results were 63% said no, and only 28% said yes. And this pattern of asking voters whether they would be personally willing to pay a higher sales tax was repeated for several other areas of government spending. And in these questions, again asking if Wichita voters would be willing to pay a higher sales tax to provide certain services, a pattern appeared. Voters are willing to pay for things that are fundamental in nature and less willing to pay for others. And as can be seen in this chart, voters are willing to pay for infrastructure and more willing to pay for maintenance of existing infrastructure rather than for new infrastructure. And voters are most willing to pay for securing a long-term water source. For business incentives, downtown development, and convention centers, Wichita voters express less willingness to pay higher sales tax to fund these items. And it's a pretty big difference, usually greater than a 2-to-1 margin. Well, here are some results from the survey questions that I'm presenting to you for the first time. Question 9 asked how Wichita voters preferred paying for new government spending. The question was, to fund existing infrastructure, build new infrastructure, and secure a long-term water source, should Wichita fund these items by adjusting spending and being more efficient, or by raising taxes? And overall, 78% of Wichita voters answered yes, meaning that they prefer that Wichita adjust spending and become more efficient. 12% answered no, meaning they were in favor of raising taxes instead. And a related question was, should Wichita fund those items through public-private partnerships or privatization rather than raising taxes? And overall, 65% answered yes, meaning they prefer the public-private partnerships or privatization. 25% answered no, indicating a preference for raising taxes. So the conclusion is that Wichita voters prefer adjusting spending, becoming more efficient, using public-private partnerships and privatization over raising taxes. And this is an important result. The city's political class, and by that I mean almost all elected officials, city hall bureaucrats, leaders of groups like the Wichita Metro Chamber of Commerce and the Wichita Eagle Editorial Board, well, they all say they hate to raise taxes. But it's really the only thing they consider. And I don't think it's a stretch to say these people are salivating over the prospect of more of other people's money to spend. To the political class, increasing the sales tax in Wichita is a foregone conclusion. As an example, here's what the Wichita Eagle's Rhonda Holman wrote this week. After running down the list of various projects that the political class wants to spend on, she concluded, whether voters buy into a sales tax increase will depend a lot on which projects rise to the top of the council's to-do list in the coming days, and later, how loud the none of the above chorus gets. Well, in her editorial, Holman never mentioned what voters really want: adjusting spending, becoming more efficient, using public-private partnerships and privatization. Anyone who objects is relegated to a chorus, the none of the above chorus. I'm surprised she didn't mention the cave people, citizens against virtually everything. Because you see, the political class doesn't really distinguish between government action on one hand and people cooperating voluntarily in free markets on the other hand. And as we're learning, there is a severe disconnect between what the people want and what the political class wants. Now, usually we frame political debates as contests between Democrats and Republicans, or maybe between liberals and conservatives. But on the Wichita City Council, all these groups agree on one thing: government should grow at the expense of the private sector. Well, they won't come right out and say that. Well, at least most ones, few will. But it's what they want. It's what the political choice field of economics and political science explains, as we've explored in past episodes of Wichita Liberty TV. And in past episodes, we've also talked about the concept of log rolling. Usually this refers to how in Congress or legislatures the members will agree to support other members' projects in exchange for support. A common example, one that our former United States Senator Bob Dole was instrumental in forging, is the joining of the Farm Bill with the food stamps program. What do these two programs have to do with each other? Why should farm subsidies be mixed in with food stamps? Well, the answer is that by joining the two programs in one bill, there's something for both rural and urban lawmakers to support. Farm state representatives will hold their nose while they vote for food stamps, and they'll tell the constituents that voting for food stamps was necessary in order to get farm subsidies. And urban legislators will say the reverse, that they had to vote for farm subsidies in order to get the food stamps for the inner city poor. Now, in Wichita, some are advocating that the sales tax vote be held incrementally. An example would be voting to dedicate 1/10 of a cent sales tax for water supply, maybe 1/4 of a cent for economic development, and so forth. But I think it's much more likely that Wichitans will be asked to approve a large sales tax increase, 1 full cent per dollar or even more, to support a whole list of projects. There will be something for everyone to like. And voters will be faced with the choice of voting for something we probably really do need, like water and street maintenance, and along with things like a new library, convention center, passenger rail, and the like. I think it's likely that we'll see this example of log rolling in action as Wichita City leaders seek to expand Wichita government. Welcome back to Wichita Liberty TV. I'm Bob Weeks. Well, do you want to be involved in politics? Well, if so, here's an opportunity for you, and I do hope that you'll consider taking advantage of this opportunity because I'm going to show you some examples of why we need good people in politics. The opportunity I'm speaking of is to become a precinct committeeman or committee woman for your party, for your precinct. Both the Democratic and Republican parties have these positions, but the Libertarian and other parties in Kansas do not. And in Kansas, for each precinct, there will be both a man and a woman serving. Well, I should say there could be, because in many cases, no one files to run for these positions, and the position is left blank. Also, many of the people who serve in these precinct positions, they never go to meetings and never participate. It's likely they're just placeholders. So what does a precinct committeeman or committeewoman do? Well, it may vary throughout the country and even throughout the various counties in Kansas. Some county party organizations ask that precinct people take an active role in helping candidates of the party campaigns, such as distributing literature, walking door to door, things like that. In other counties, not much is really expected of these positions. But one thing that precinct people can do is to participate every 2 years in the organization election for their county party. This is usually held in November of even-numbered years, such as this year, and the precinct people gather together to elect county party officers such as the chair, vice chair, treasurer, and secretary. They also elect delegates to the next level upwards, which are the district party committees, which are aligned along with the congressional districts. And then if you're selected to that, you could then possibly be selected to be a Kansas delegate for the statewide party organization. And that's how people are selected to attend presidential nominating conventions every 4 years. Well, there's something else that precinct committee men and women do. When there are vacancies for offices, not all offices, but most, like state representative or state senator, the precinct people within that state house or state senate district will select the replacement. Well, that's, of course, the precinct people of the same party as the office holder that left office. And because state house districts may have only a handful, 3, 4, 5, or 6 precincts, and because many precinct committee positions are vacant, and because many of the people who are elected don't participate, you can have a very big role in selecting office holders to fulfill the remainder of elected terms. You and just a few others will select someone to serve in office. So at least in Sedgwick County, that's what being a precinct committee man or committee woman involves. You can make as much of it as you want. And I've served before in this capacity. In 2008, I decided to run in my precinct in northeast Wichita, and another man had filed too, so there was an election. And these precinct committee position elections are held in conjunction with the August primary. That'd be the first week of August of even-numbered years like this year. So since I had an opponent, I campaigned throughout my precinct. I made up a little flyer telling who I was and what I believed in. I knocked on doors, talked to people, and left the flyer when no one answered. And I won the election. Now, at that time, I didn't really know what to expect. And I remember the Saturday after the election, I was mowing my lawn, and it was a hot August day, and all of a sudden I remembered, hey, I'm king of this precinct. People should be mowing my lawn for me. Well, it didn't work out quite the way I kid. But I did participate as a party insider, so to speak. And then in 2010, when it came time to refile, well, by then I was much more involved in my blogging and reporting and political commentary and so forth. And people convinced me that it was somewhat of a conflict to have both a party position and to do that work that I do now. Well, I had already filed for election by that time, so I simply did not campaign, and the other person who filed narrowly won that election. So how do you become a precinct committee person? Well, the first step, the most important step, what you absolutely must do is to file for election. And in Kansas, the filing deadline is noon on Monday, June 2nd, just about a week away. Now, in Sedgwick County, all you have to do is go to the election office. That's in the historical county courthouse on the first floor. Just walk in the election office and say, I'd like to run for precinct committee man or committee woman. They'll ask you things like your address so that they can place you in the proper precinct, and of course, for your political party, Democratic or Republican. And you do have to be a registered voter in that party in order to run for precinct committee man or woman. There is no filing fee. You do not need any party leader's permission to file, and there's no need to file any sort of campaign finance reports unless you're going to spend money over a certain amount. I don't remember what that amount is, but very few people ever spend money campaigning for these positions. If you do have an opponent, and of course the Sedgwick County Election Office website can tell you that, then you may want to campaign, and the campaigning can just be walking around your neighborhood, talking to your neighbors, telling them what you're doing, and asking for their vote. Well, it's fun. It's a way to participate in the political affairs of your party and your community. And as I'll show you when we get back from this commercial message, we need good people to serve in political office. Welcome back to Wichita Liberty TV. I'm Bob Weeks. Well, one of the problems Wichita faces as we decide the future level of government involvement in our economy is an anti-market and anti-capitalism bias of many council members. And it's also characteristic of City Hall bureaucrats. Well, I really don't know if it's a bias or just not being informed. But the basic belief is that government is not hindered by the demands of business, such as earning a profit and avoiding losses. Therefore, government is able to do things that the private sector cannot or will not do. Wichita City Council member Janet Miller, she represents District 6, mostly north central Wichita. She recently provided as an example, as reported on the pages of the Wichita Eagle on March 28th. And the Wichita Eagle reported, Councilmember Janet Miller called the Hyatt a special case and she's opposed to selling it. We have to maintain a high-quality convention hotel, she said. The hotel makes a profit, but we reinvest the profits back into it. If we sell that property, a hotelier is unlikely to invest as much back into it as we do, debt service, stockholders, things like that. We don't have that burden. Well, that was Wichita City Council member Janet Miller talking about the Hyatt Hotel in downtown Wichita. Now, I don't know if Janet Miller reads the Wichita Eagle, but if she had, less than 1 month before, that newspaper reported this. It said a $5 million renovation project at the Wichita Marriott Hotel near East Kellogg and the Kansas Turnpike is now complete. The 10-month-long project encompassed nearly the entire ground floor of the 11-story, 294-room hotel. We basically tore everything down and started from scratch, said the hotel's manager, who added that the hotel remained in operation during the renovation. It follows a renovation of the hotel's guest rooms about 4 years ago, she said. Well, wait a minute. Didn't the city council member just tell us that a private hotel owner is unlikely to invest profits back into the hotel in this way? That's what I heard Janet Miller say. Now I invite you to draw your own conclusions, but here are a few of mine. First, if I owned or worked at the Wichita Marriott or several other hotels in Wichita, I'd be offended with Miller's implication that the Hyatt is Wichita's only high-quality convention hotel. Why did we pour millions in taxpayer subsidy into the Broadview and Ambassador hotels in downtown Wichita? And even though it has the burden of being in the private sector, how was the Marriott able to invest millions in renovation? And how would you feel if you owned a high-quality convention hotel in Wichita like the Marriott, and the city operates a competitor to you that doesn't have to worry about profits, debt service, and shareholders? Does that create an environment that encourages private investment? Perhaps this is why so many of the hotels that have opened recently in Wichita have sought and received millions in government subsidy. And also, I wonder if other hotels are more diligent than the Wichita government-owned Hyatt Hotel in keeping people from establishing meth labs in their rooms. Yeah, that's right. In September 2004, the Wichita Eagle reported that a man was arrested after police discovered a meth lab operating in a room at Wichita's downtown Hyatt Hotel. You know, the hotel that Wichita City Council member Janet Miller implied is our only high-quality convention hotel. Well, the expressed attitude of Miller towards business and capitalism is common among government officials and bureaucrats. Yet, we are expected to trust people with these beliefs to lead our economic development efforts. It's little wonder that the only solutions considered involve a greater role for government, including greater revenue for government. Oh, taxes, I meant to say. Well, here's another example. And okay, I realize it looks like I'm picking on women here, but you remember in the past I've showed videos spotlighting the bad behavior of Wichita Mayor Carl Brewer and council members Jeff Longwell and Pete Meitzner. I do try to spread it around equally. But back in February 2012, 2 years ago, the Wichita School Board held a meeting, and the topic was deciding whether to close several schools. It was contentious. At the meeting, citizens had criticized the board for large and important issues, but also for such mundane things as the amount of the superintendent's monthly car allowance. And board president Betty Arnold admonished citizens for speaking about things like this in public. It's not respectful, she said. And finally, after directing a uniformed security guard to station himself near a citizen speaker, Arnold told the audience, "If we need to clear the room, we will clear the room. This board meeting is held in public, but is not for the public or of the public." And I hope you understand that. Let's go to the videotape.
The basis of the Kansas Open Meetings Law is the presumption of openness. If officials meet in private and make up their minds about how they'll vote and what...
Ma'am, I will interrupt you. First of all, you are making accusations against the board. Just a moment, just hear me out. Now, we would love to hear your comments, but once again, no disrespect will be shown to the board members, as we will not... These are
facts.
Just a moment. It is not a fact that we've met in private. I will ask you, please, to reframe your comments to a respectful tone to the board. We're more than happy to listen to you.
Okay, you interrupt. This is the second time you've interrupted me.
Ma'am, I am directing this meeting. Now, you will either...
That's okay.
Just a moment. Sir, could you please come over? I will once again, for the final time, remind the audience, there will be no further outbreaks. None. If we need to clear the room, we will clear the room. This board meeting is being held in public, but it is not for the public or of the public. And I hope you understand that. Again, I am asking your comments to please be respectful. No accusations are necessary.
So can I continue, now?
If you can continue within the line that I'm asking you to continue in, yes, you may.
Thank you.
But if you have accusations, I will interrupt and I will ask you please to take your seat.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Well, this certainly lets citizens know the meaning of the term public when it comes to our public schools. By the way, the Wichita School District is, by now, one of the few governmental agencies that does not make video of its meetings available. You can watch a broadcast of their meetings on the day following the meeting, and it might be repeated again during the week, but that's it. Okay, one more example. When the Wichita City Council debated adding fluoride to Wichita's water, Councilmember LaVonda Williams, that's District 1, Northeast Wichita, she advised taxpayers on what to do if they disagree with action taken by the council. Just don't go there, she said. Now, Williams was expressing concern that if the council were to decide to fluoridate Wichita's water, well, then citizens would not be able to avoid ingesting the added fluoride. They wouldn't have a choice. And by way of analogy, Williams counseled the concerned citizen. She said, "Did you like the art that went down to Waterwalk? Maybe you didn't, but you don't have to go there." And she also said, "We don't have to go to the apartments that were built at Waterwalk, and we don't have to stay at the Ambassador Hotel." Let's go to the videotape.
We make those decisions all the time. Did you like the art that went down to the Waterwalk? Maybe you didn't, but you don't have to go there. Did you like the apartments that were built? Maybe you didn't, but you don't have to go there. Did you like the Ambassador Hotel? A lot of you didn't, but you don't have to stay there. But if we make a decision today, the 7 of us, to move forward on fluoride, you don't have a choice. You don't have a choice.
Yes, it's true. We can mostly avoid these government-sponsored and subsidized places if we want. But what Councilmember LaVonna Williams may have forgotten is that we can't avoid being forced to pay for them. And having paid for them, shouldn't we be able to enjoy them such as they are? Besides that, what does it say about a government where if we disagree with its actions, if we disagree with the way it has spent our taxpayer dollars, we're told, you don't have to go there. Just look the other way. These are our governmental leaders. We need to do better. We have to do better. And as we saw last week, some of the private sector leaders who dabble in government aren't much better. This year could be an important year for Wichita, as we may be asked to make large and important decisions. Keep tuned to Wichita Liberty TV and visit the Voice for Liberty on the internet at wichitaliberty.org. I'll do my best to keep you informed. Well, that's Wichita Liberty TV for this week. Thank you for watching. I'm Bob Weeks.